Chris Harman, How Marxism Works. Read by Dessalines. Section: Understanding History. Ideas by themselves cannot change society. This was one of Marx's first conclusions. Like a number of thinkers before him, he insisted that to understand society, you had to see human beings as a part of the material world. Human behavior was determined by material forces, just like the behavior of any other natural object. The study of humanity was part of the scientific study of the natural world. Thinkers with such views were called materialists. Marx regarded materialism as a great step forward over the various religious and idealist notions of history. It meant that you could argue scientifically about changing social conditions, and you no longer depended upon praying to God or on spiritual change in people. The replacement of idealism by materialism was the replacement of mysticism by science. But not all materialist explanations of human behavior are correct. Just as there have been mistaken scientific theories in biology, chemistry, or physics, so there have been mistaken attempts to develop scientific theories of society. Here are a few examples. One very widespread, non-Marxist, materialist view holds that human beings are animals who behave naturally in certain ways. Just as it is in the nature of wolves to kill, or in the nature of sheep to be placid, so it is in the nature of men to be aggressive, domineering, competitive, and greedy, and it is implied of women to be meek, submissive, deferential, and passive. One formulation of this view is to be found in the best-selling book, The Naked Ape. The conclusions that are drawn from such arguments are almost invariably reactionary. If men are naturally aggressive, it is said, then there is no point in trying to improve society. Things will always turn out the same. Revolutions will always fail. But human nature does in fact vary from society to society. For instance, competitiveness, which is taken for granted in our societies, hardly existed in many previous ones. When scientists first tried to give Sioux Indians IQ tests, they found that the Indians could not understand why they should not help each other do the answers. The society they lived in stressed cooperation, not competition. The same with aggressiveness. When Eskimos first met Europeans, they could not make any sense whatsoever of the notion of war. The idea of one group of people trying to wipe out another group of people seemed crazy to them. In our society, it is regarded as natural that parents should love and protect their children. Yet in the ancient Greek city of Sparta, it was considered as natural to leave infants out in the mountains to see if they could survive the cold. Unchanging human nature theories provide no explanation for the great events of history. The pyramids of Egypt, the splendors of ancient Greece, the empires of Rome or the Incas, the modern industrial city, are put on the same level as the illiterate peasants who lived in the mud hovels of the Dark Ages. All that matters is the naked ape, not the magnificent civilizations the ape has built. It is irrelevant that some forms of society succeed in feeding the apes, while others leave millions to starve to death. Many people accept a different materialist theory, which stresses the way it is possible to change human behavior. Just as animals can be trained to behave differently in a circus to a jungle, so, say the supporters of this view, human behavior can similarly be changed. If only the right people got control of society, it is said, then human nature could be transformed. This view is certainly a great step forward from the naked ape. But as an explanation of how society as a whole can be changed, it fails. If everyone is completely conditioned in present-day society, how can anyone ever rise above society and see how to change the conditioning mechanisms? Is there some God-ordained minority that is magically immune to the pressures that dominate everyone else? If we are all animals in the circus, who can be the lion tamer? Those who hold this theory either end up saying society cannot change, like the naked apers, or they believe change is produced by something outside society, by God or a great man or the power of individual ideas. Their materialism lets a new version of idealism in through the back door. As Marx pointed out, this doctrine necessarily ends up dividing society into two parts, one of which is superior to society. This materialist view is often reactionary. One of the best-known adherents of the view today is the right-wing American psychologist called Skinner. He wants to condition people to behave in certain ways. But since he himself is a product of American capitalist society, his conditioning merely means trying to make people conform to that society. Another materialist view blames all the misery in the world on population pressure. This is usually called Malthusian, after Malthus, the English economist of the late 18th century who first developed it. But it cannot explain why the United States, for instance, burns corn while people in India starve. Nor can it explain why 150 years ago there was not enough food produced in the US to feed 10 million people, while today enough is produced to feed 200 million. It forgets that every extra mouth to feed is also an extra person capable of working and creating wealth. Marx called all these mistaken explanations forms of, quote, mechanical or crude materialism. They all forget that as well as being part of the material world, human beings are also acting, living creatures whose actions change it.